And you'll find this pretty comical. There was a group of guys, we was in World War II barracks, no AC or whatever, open bay, bunks and so forth. Some of the guys come to me, guy from Hawaii, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, come to me and say, Kinlaw, we're failing this course. We need you to help us. And the washout rate at Block 4 was very, very high. But we sat in class 8 hours a day, and every hour we got a 10-minute break. And that's it. We've conditioned from 2 years to 6 months. Okay, and you went through all your training in there. So I sat there and I tutored those guys and helped them, and they went from failing to where they aced the test when we did that. And they actually brought them in and accused them of cheating. Now this is kind of a Stand By Me type. Oh, not Stand By Me. Can't remember. Yeah, it was. I can't remember where they. Yeah, Stand By Me. I think in there. And they said, "What happened?" They said, "You need to get Kinlaw to be teaching this for you because he can explain it to us." There again, I'm visual in there. And that's when they asked me when I stay on, would I consider teaching during that time? And I said, no, in there. But I appreciate the confidence that the guys had in me. And I met, and of course, you know, you're from the South, you talk different than the other guys, right? Kinlaw, where are you from? The North? What? Carolina. So I covered my bases in both ways. But it was a great opportunity for me. And those of you who are not really certain about, you know, you may want to look at the military. It was great for me. The one remaining contact that I have on my maternal side is my uncle, and he retired from the U.S. Army, and he's at Fort Bragg, lives outside of the Hope Mills in Fort Bragg. His son is a doctor. Has asked me, he said, will you speak at Daddy's funeral? And I said, Jimmy, I'd be more than glad to. I said, my biggest challenge is, how am I going to get through it? I said, because your dad played a very important role in our lives. And we had no place else to go. Nowhere to go. Your father came and got us. And he said, Benny, he said, God spoke to me. He said, go check on you guys. So, I've seen the role that God has played in our lives. Very appreciative of that. My mom used to bake, for Christmas, would bake it's called an icebox cake. It's not an icebox fruit cake. But in my last deployment, which I was gone through Christmas, she kept her tree up, and she kept part of that cake freezing in the top part of the refrigerator. She said, I will not take that tree down until he comes home. I know he's safe. And of course, I came home safe, and some others didn't. But that was just those things that we did in there. Now, my mom was not a very overshadowing, telling me about, I love you, son, or whatever. After being gone for many, many months, and I came in, and she says, well, how you doing? I said, no hugging. No, I said, very, very well, thank you. So I'm glad you're home. And that was, you know, I can't believe that's just, but you know, my son, when he was, you know, every day I would take him to, I never heard, my father never told me he loved me. And my mom never told me until later on in life. And it was always, Mother, I love you too, those type of things. We'd never, as my sister says, never touch a showy family. But you know, that changed. And my brother was that way. As I stood there watching him, or sit there, I should say, and at his funeral of his granddaughter. And she said she was only 19 when she was killed in an automobile accident in there. No emotion. That stern, because that's why we was raised. That stern, hard look. And I said, as I'm getting older, I remember that, well, you know, show my getting mad, that's an emotion. I show that. So these others are more important. So to learn that as well. You have more questions? Or you got any more questions?
Do you mind if the students ask a few?
Yeah, I'll say there's...
They'll introduce themselves.
Okay.
Taryn, I think you're first. Oh, Taryn, will you do it for Taryn, please?
Okay.
Thanks, honey. Introduce yourself.
My name's Stacy. I'm a senior. I'm a junior. Because it said senior on your thing.
Yeah.
You've been a senior manager at the top flooring company in the world. How many years did it take to make it into your first management role?
Well, I mentioned to you I was in my 30s, and I actually went from a supervisor to a plant manager. That plant was 225 people at that plant. I was in my 30s at that time. Said I climbed that. I went from department manager to superintendent. That was their structure, and on to the plant manager. 225 people there. And I will say this: in every move that I made, there was two qualifiers. Okay, that's cost and quality. Okay, those are the two main drivers: cost and quality. I made the decision I made for this plant up here in 1980 in Columbia that I mentioned to close that plant was cost and quality. And of course, now I was living north of Atlanta, and Mohawk bought out Image. Okay, I got a call to come back to corporate in North Carolina, which is in Washington, North Carolina, north of Newbern, in there. And the vice president of Image, he'd asked me, he said, "Would you ever consider leaving?" And I said, "Don't think so." But the CEO that I mentioned that asked me to take this business over, he said, "You know, I'm going to be retiring in a few years, and you run this business, you'll be one of the candidates that either move up to executive VP and then with one of the other guys in that." They actually went outside the company, got a guy with banking experience to be the CEO. Who's next?
My name is Aaron, and how do you feel about having lost the House District 91 race, and what inspired you to now run for the GOP party chairman?
In early 2007, I was asked to come to Columbia and be part of trying to convince the House subcommittee that we did not need to lose business for Chem Nuclear. Chem Nuclear, if you're not familiar with that, which is low-level waste we store it in Bromwell County. They contribute about 15% of our budget, to our county budget. They have contributed $400 million to the South Carolina Department of Education, paying them. And then in 2007, I was at in Dalton, Georgia, and some of the suppliers said, "Are you aware that Mohawk's closing some plants over in the adjacent county?" I said, "I wasn't aware of that." So I called, and they said, "We can close it." So I called the representative, and I said, "Are you aware that Mohawk's going to close those plants?" "Yeah. In fact, some of the guys at church." I said, "Okay, what can we do about it?" "Well, what do you suggest?" I said, "The first thing I'd do was call Governor Sanders." "Can you do that for